Okay, reconvening to open session at 6:05. Do we have adjustments to the agenda?
We do not.
Okay, and we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start off with with 8, celebrating our success, 8.1 Kinderbridge program at Healdsburg Elementary School. What a nice way to start.
Yeah, this will be fun.
All right, yay. I'm going to be here for like all of about 10 seconds and introduce, you all know Principal Franey. And he has 2 of our teachers here who are hopefully going to just celebrate this amazing program that happened this summer and into the school year. And I can't thank Jeff and the teachers enough. This is an idea we've had for many years to make happen, even pre-pandemic times, in order to give our kids and families some time to get adjusted, for us to do a little bit of assessment and make sure that we've got some balanced classes. And they pulled it off in pandemic land. So a dream of mine for many years, and they made it happen. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and the teachers.
So I'll be here less than you, Erin, because it's not really about me at all, or us as a district. It's about the teachers behind us, Stephanie Coventry and Evelyn Coleman, along with Emily Peterson and Amy Saunders. So they took an idea and they ran with it. So I just want to give them the mic and have them run through kind of what they put together before the school year.
All right, hi, I'm Stephanie Coventry.
I'm Evelyn Coleman. Hi.
Sorry, I don't need to make it that low. So I'm one of the kindergarten teachers at HES campus, and I think this is my 5th year or 6th year teaching kindergarten now. And this summer was the first time we were ever able to have this Kinderbridge program, and I have noticed a huge difference with just like our HES Kinder family. Just getting to know all the students, the teachers getting to know the students, it's just been really wonderful building this whole Kinder family. And so what we did was, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, so each day the kids came and they were divided into a group, same group each day, but with a different teacher. So we did the program for 3 days, and we have 4 kinder teachers. So we saw about 75% of the kindergarten class rotating each day. So we were able to get to know a lot of the different students. And each day when they came in, we kind of had an opening talk. We had a song, and we did an activity with them. And then we let them go out to play for recess to get to know some of their other peers.
And then after we released the children, the kindergarten teachers were able to have quick one-on-one assessments. Do you want to be in charge of that?
Sure.
And we were able to ask the kiddos if they knew their colors, if they could recognize the letters in their name, if they would be able to point and count to specific shapes. We asked them if they could just kind of tell us a little bit about themselves, like who's in your family, what's your favorite color, can they have a conversation with me? And that was just a really great, quick assessment for us to kind of see where they're at the start of kindergarten prior to us making classes. Mm-hmm. And then, we typically look at age and gender. Were they in transitional kindergarten? Are they a language learner? Do they have any IEPs? Preschool, no preschool. All of these are factors to making classes in addition to our screening and then observations that we had throughout Kinderbridge that really allowed us to really make balanced classrooms. Mm-hmm. And I would say that we're all really happy. And if we didn't have the children in our class that day during Kinderbridge, like I said, we have a relationship with the kiddos that aren't in our classes, which is really nice. And I'm all about building a classroom family, and I know Evelyn is as well. And now we have this kinder family, which is really great.
And I think also for the first day of school, the kids felt a lot more confident coming in. They knew what our classrooms looked like. They knew what to do when they got to school. They knew the recess procedure. And so it just made for a lot more of a calm first day of school, I think both for the kids, for us, and for the parents. And I would say it was just a really smooth entry to the school year.
So that's it.
I have a question. Did you use the assessments to form the classes? Or were the classes already formed at that point?
We use the assessments to form the classes. So we looked at like their kindergarten registration form in addition to using these assessments with our observations from KinderBridge too. So we were able to kind of use a bunch of different forms of data.
That's great.
Yeah.
How many kids came?
I think we had approximately 40 every day. And then some families we called, like if they weren't able to come, we called to kind of remind them, and then they would join the next day. So yeah, it was really successful.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that. What a great investment.
Yeah, I can tell you, I was there the first day of school when they were all getting dropped off, and it was a weird first day of school, right? No parents allowed on campus and things like that because of COVID protocols, and it was really well done, seamless. I think I saw one crier, right, which is a record.
Chris?
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Well, it wasn't even me. You guys just did a fantastic job, and you could see the kids knew what school was about and had readiness and expectation that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So it's the smoothest kindergarten start I've seen in Healdsburg. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for doing that.
All right, thank you very, very much.
Thank you for coming tonight.
That's great. Love it. Okay, next we have public comments on non-agenda items. The public may address the board on any consent action item or item not listed on the agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, during this period, the board cannot consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person. Public comment? Okay, Erin Helenen? Hello.
I guess I'm new to this, and I think I need to ask for it to be heard on next month's agenda.
Oh,
If you were asking, or if you were petitioning for an action item, yeah, you would have to write a letter and ask us, or we could have a conversation, you and I.
Okay.
But if you can make sure the mic's on and speak into it, just because we're filming too.
Hello?
There you
Testing,
go.
1, 2.
Thank you.
Basically, it's asking for equestrian to be added as a sport that receives credit at Healdsburg High School.
For PE.
For PE,
Gotcha.
yes.
for PE.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Understood. I have your contact information. I'll get a hold of you at the end of this week and we can talk more.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any more?
No.
Yep. Okay. All right, approval of consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite governing board action on all consent agenda items, which do not typically require discussion. Items pulled and thereby excluded from the consent agenda will be acted upon individually. Any item can be removed, deleted, or held for discussion from the agenda by the request of a board member. We're moving to 10.1 approval of the consent agenda. We have a discussion, questions?
I'd like to make
Turn your mic on.
turn
Yeah.
it on first. Just a comment on the item 10.3B, the Healdsburg Unified District Governance Handbook, and specifically in referencing the vision and the mission statements. I know I've spoken to this before. I actually had a conversation earlier with our superintendent, and I mentioned that I had been in, I'm not sure if I should say how many, I think it was 5 districts, 6 districts actually, and as a chief personnel officer and as a school administrator as well as a teacher. And specifically in 2 of those districts, they were very involved in anti-institutionalized racism, working on diversity, et cetera. But when I came here, and in the last 2, 3, indeed 4 years that I've been watching and have been on the board, I have been exhilarated, I guess I'm trying to think of the right word, that this board, well, 5 of us, Donna's not here, have come to a vision that what we see for our schools, for our kids, for our parents, and for our community. Other districts that I've been in talked about, but didn't have the end point. I can see it. I hope we all can see it. I hope the community sees it. I hope that our faculty and our classified staff see it. I am thrilled. I am thankful. And I want to thank my fellow trustees for sharing that vision, not with me, but with the community. And I also like to thank our superintendent for constantly facilitating things, getting things going, sometimes in the background, sometimes not so much, but that we are all working together to make this vision that is now, in my mind, very clear. And I want to also say that I, for one, and I hope you all share my vision of the vision, is that we as a board and hopefully the administration will do everything in our power to support our certificated staff and our classified staff in bringing this vision to actuality. And again, I thank you all.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, with that said, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second? Okay. Moved by trustee McGowan and seconded by trustee Potmaso. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we're moving to the agenda items, and members of the public have the right to address the governing board on any item of interest, providing it relates to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Your request to address the board will be heard at the time the item is being discussed. In accordance with Board Policy 9323, individual speakers shall be allowed a total of 3 minutes to address the board for a maximum of 20 minutes on each subject matter. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. So moving on to 11.1, student learning, equity, and school culture. This is our report.
All right, give Debbie a second to get the slides up. And
this is the Healdsburg Unified School District Summer School Program.
The best we can do for, there we go. So tonight we've got Drew Kempiak, who is a teacher for us during the regular school year and served as the summer school principal for the secondary program. So Drew is going to take us through summer school for secondary students, so students who are rising into 7th, 8th, and onward. I want to publicly acknowledge Drew, not only for being here tonight after teaching for a full day, just like our kindergarten teachers, but what a thing to step into, right? We were opening, when he got hired, we were just opening our campuses, hired to be the summer school principal. We had really no idea if that was going to stay, if we were going to really be able to keep kids on campus, and planning a summer school program. And as we've told you guys before, the biggest in the recent history of Healdsburg. So I just want to acknowledge Drew for stepping up. He did this while he was welcoming kids back to campus as a chemistry and physics teacher, took over the reins as an administrator, ran a seamless program. I always say no news is good news in my business. I had to go over there and be like, you guys are still running, right? Everything's happening that we talked about, because he pulled it off so well, and led with really hardly any support from the district offices at all. So I'm going to let Drew go first, and he'll present about the secondary summer school program.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's a clicker there. Is that going to work?
Yeah.
Great. I'm Andrew Kempiak. Other board meetings, I had to give you my address. Do I have to do that here, or is this pretty informal? All right, cool, good.
You're invited.
All right, so
We got it.
I'm going to assume you are all familiar with the summer school program that we have done at Healdsburg High School. So there's 2 3-week sessions. Too far. First session we had for the middle school, you had the 3 teachers that are listed there. Charles Pearson, Robin Daugherty, Juan Gonzalez, who does not currently teach in the district. And then we had a second session with Charles Pearson just at the Rise Up. So in the middle school session, I don't know how to keep it not jumping around like that. You can see the numbers that were there versus, thank you so much, session 1 versus session 2. During that program, session 2 that was like our Rise Up program. So those were the 8th graders that were non-promotes who were still going to be incoming freshmen next year. So we focused that program more on acclimation to high school, and we actually reached out to different teachers to come in to present to campus. So we were fortunate that Mr. Crisino came and gave them a tour of our our culinary arts, and video production classes. They also went over and talked to our MBA class and learned from some of those teachers' experiences. I gave them a tour of the science wing and got to impress them by electrocuting them. And Mr. Kavanaugh talked to them a little about the PE class. You can also see in session 1, we focused mostly on math and English with Mr. Pearson, and then Mrs. Daugherty ran the math program, and then we had our Mike Hauser STEM Academy, which was phenomenal. It was always awesome watching these kids, like almost every other day, filing out of school once they got in to go on some field trip, which was really, really kind of great for them. Next slide, please. So you can see the Mike Hauser STEM Academy. One of the places they got to go to was the Pacific Coast Air Museum. So they got to take a tour of all that, and it was really cool because when they weren't going out on a field trip, they were always bringing some sort of outside expert in to talk to them just about engineering or some sort of science and engineering field all the time. Slide. So for high school, we had, again, 2 different sessions. You can see the different class there. I really have to tip my hat to all of those teachers, in particular Mr. Kavanaugh, who ran our online learning course. There was some gaps in what we had to do at the start of the year, and Mr. Kavanaugh was able to fill in a lot of student need through our online learning program, which is amazing. And Mr. Thop ran a hybrid learning program where he had students in class, and while they were in class doing their MBA projects, would pull himself aside to meet virtually with students who were not able to come in class for whatever reason, and to meet with them. So those 2 guys were heroes in my book. I was really impressed with them. Slide, please. So you can see the stats, the different students. I'll be honest with you, I was not terribly happy that we were only able to serve about 90 students. There was a combination of factors there, primarily due to COVID spacing, and there's some other factors, like I said, we'll get to later. I was very pleased with the fact that we really only lost 2 students due to either their grades or them choosing not to return to summer school. Thank you. So we were able to get some pictures of students doing work, which was honestly kind of fun. That was the one thing a lot of teachers said back, is that there's that idea of like having to retrain students to actually physically write on a piece of paper versus typing or clicking. That took some work to do. Thank you. The other thing that really kind of fell into our lap was Dr. Lancaster, who is he is the art teacher at Healdsburg High School. He is part of this art in nature group, and he came to us out of nowhere and was like, there's this whale carcass that washed up and he wanted to do some art project with it. And we were really fortunate that our MBA program and those Rise Up students were like, yeah, we'll go. Thanks to Amy Jones-Kerr, we were able to quickly coordinate a field trip experience for them. And as it says in that last bulleted point, it's not really bulleted, but last sentence, whale carcasses do not smell good. Next slide, please. So you can see them scavenging and salvaging, and they actually grabbed a bunch of stuff. And if you want to, the next time you're on campus, see Dr. Lancaster about where those bones are, because he's right now just letting them ripen, I guess. I don't know what they do. So some of the things we learned from summer school, it was hard to hire people. If you noticed on the slide when we got to the high school, we only taught 1 in-class English period. That was it. Second session, nobody else wanted to do it. It was really hard. We tried flying a science teacher position. Nobody applied. It was really difficult to get teachers to staff those positions. We also noticed that I'll get to one of the teacher moments too, but the students loved being back. It was awesome seeing them back in school. And we had to do a lot of education about a mask is a face mask, not a neck or just mouth mask. It has to cover everything. So there was a lot of dialogue about that. So some final thoughts from teachers and staff. And one of the things I don't like doing is reading what's on here to you, because you can all read. So I'm just going to sort of like let that sit there and let you guys sort of read that on your whim. I'm going to highlight one of the things Mrs. Calhoun said. She was our math teacher in the second session. Again, I was really fortunate that Mrs. Calhoun and Mrs. Atwood decided to double team math. Otherwise, we would only be doing one session of math. She came to me after the first day or two doing it and just went, the kids that I have in summer school shouldn't be here. They know what they're doing. And when she talked to them, a super majority of her class admitted, I couldn't look at a screen and learn. So it was really hard for her to have that experience with those students who just, that learning in-person experience just was what they needed to be successful. Thank you. And then Mr. Jones. I think Mr. Jones is the last one. Thank you. Yeah. I'll take any questions if you have them.
How many teachers again?
We had 1, 2, 3 for middle school. Yeah, if you want to go to like the 3 for middle school, and then one more up, and then that was our high school session. Miss Decepti, she did our special ed, so that was 6 through 12. So she had the broad spectrum of special ed there. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah, about 12 or 13.
Okay. No question, but I just want to thank all of the teachers and you that stepped up to do this, because I know that last year was really, really tough, and it was a really heavy lift for all teachers, and that's probably why the recruiting and hiring was so difficult for these programs, but what an amazing opportunity for our students that you provided. So thank you to all of you that provided this for them, because distance learning was hard for a lot of kids, and I share your sadness that more students couldn't participate, because it sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Have a wonderful night.
Thank you very much, Drew.
Okay, summer school was led by Christy McCullough. She's principal down up in Ukiah now. She's actually at an Ed Foundation meeting for her new school, so she couldn't be here. It's a hard decision for her. So there's a lot more in this PowerPoint slide than there would normally be had she be here. She wanted to speak to you. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. She and I had a bite to eat tonight as she was headed from Ukiah to get her home office in order to do her Ed Foundation meeting remotely. I think something, that Drew talked about, and I just want to hit home here, is this transition time that the summer allowed for us to rebuild relationships, to rebuild routines, and to foster kids as learners. It was really special time. So we can go to the next slide. The next two slides are really just kind of Principal McCullough, Christy McCullough's note to you and to the public. This is in the public board packet, and she just, because she couldn't be here tonight, I wanted to say a few things. So let you read that quickly, but maybe at your convenience at another time, because it's kind of long. The next slide. So encourage you, that's kind of her note to the district and the community. So let's get on with the pictures, because those speak louder than any kind of words I could say. Reestablishing routines. Mr. Kempiak talked about wearing the mask properly, standing in line, waiting your turn. being in school again, raising your hand, right? That picture was chosen for a reason. It really provided the kids a time to practice in a smaller environment and a low pressure environment. And we had literally no behavior issues. I mean, they were good. They wanted to be there, but they needed to learn how to do it again, right? Next slide. A lot of understanding the pandemic. These students are young and trying to understand what is this historical time that they're living through. Thankfully, our core curriculum, Benchmark Advanced, that we use for grades 3, 4, and 5, produced supplementary summer curriculum that we purchased for the summer school program that helped kids understand what pandemics are, the history of them. Really well done supplementary curriculum specifically for a summer learning program. So we leaned on that material for the English ELD component of this. Cooperative games. We did a lot of card games to practice those math facts, right? We're getting away from math facts on a worksheet and trying to do math facts through more engaged and real ways. Small groups, so you can see we had a paraprofessional for each grade level. Spending time outside and playing together was an important part. There was a recess. Kids were there for 3 hours. So next. They're so thrilled to be back in the Gaga ball and playing on the playground. Next slide. Hands-on math activities. So all students rotated between 2 teachers. So they had some English language arts and English language development time, and then also some math. The teachers really made use of our outdoor spaces. We have beautiful campuses with wonderful outdoor spaces, so they're outside a lot, both for health and safety and just because it's fun to be outside learning and journaling and drawing, and trying to use as much real-world math as we can. So we leaned on Dr. Joe Bowler's materials for mathematical mindsets and some of the summer math camp stuff that we had done with the U-Cubed group the last time we ran summer school 2 years ago. Next slide. Friendships, kids being together again, seeing each other, enjoying food. Our food service provided both a breakfast and a lunch for all kids every single day. Talking about kindness, doing fun activities. They all made a tie-dye the first week, and then for the following 5 weeks, they wore their tie-dye shirt on Friday as a way to show school spirit and kind of togetherness. You can keep going. SEL activities, getting into the mood meter, which we use in our K-5 schools, helping them practice that. Student agency was a big thing, and if Christy was here, she would have talked to you a lot about reframing who students are, and they're not just a bot looking at a computer, but what are they interested in, and how are they contributing to the learning? What do they want to learn about? Summer is a time where you have a little bit more flexibility and you're not so much on a scope and sequence, kind of burn it through. So if a card game went a little longer because they were in it and getting faster and practicing their math facts or adding, subtracting, whatever the card game was set up to help them do, we would let it go, depending on where the student, that student agency of where they wanted to bring it, what they were interested in. Getting kids to do the writing on the board. They're making a solar oven there, and you'll see in some of the ending pictures the result of that. Christy had a staff meeting every Wednesday afternoon where they would reflect on where they're at and do some rejiggering of the planning for the curriculum, any resources that would needed. So it was kind of a constant check-in, figuring out what how students were progressing through the planned curriculum and also what interests they were showing. You can see the tie-dyes there on our girls there, tie-dye Fridays. Next. The outdoor learning, playing chess, not just games for game's sake, but understanding strategy and what's some of the mathematical variations behind chess. You can ask some of our 4th and 5th grade teachers about how math and chess go together. And then you can see the solar ovens making some s'mores there. A lot of kids don't get the opportunity to go camping, don't get the opportunity to go out and make s'mores, so they made s'mores as a school-wide activity. You can see one of our paraprofessionals there running a small group, Elaine Mack, phenomenal support, and we'll get in this towards the very end, from the support staff. So not only did we have teaching staff, we had high-quality paraprofessionals working with smaller groups of students throughout the day. Couldn't have done this without those custodians, crossing guards, gatekeepers, right? We were following the kind of modified protocols. So masks on and making sure that kids were safe. These are more of our paraprofessionals. There's Christy with, oh my goodness, Gabby, thank you. That was weird. With Gabby Caruso, who is the school secretary for the summer. They were a dynamic team up front. And then the last, you got to have food. You can keep going. Paraprofessionals, keep going. And you got to have food and keep things clean. So the kitchen staff made breakfast and lunch every single day. There's Alex, our custodian. We do, thankfully, to Jeff, actually, and a lot of his leadership and teachers, we're getting better at sorting trash. So we're composting, recycling, and trash, and we kept that up through the summer. So there's Alex guiding the kids on how to deal with their waste. So the kids did a little ending survey on what worked, what didn't, and this is a Wordle from the things that they remember. The prompt for this are things they'll remember, things they appreciated from the summer learning program, and we got feedback from the kids at the end. So very proud of our teachers and our administrators for pulling this off. You know, again, we have visions, the district office, and these are the people that have to pull it off. So I wanted to publicly thank everybody for the hard work, including all the support staff to work again. Really didn't get much of a summer off. We broke for 3 weeks in July. And other than that, our campuses were humming. So that's all I have to say. Any questions or comments?
Great. No, just thank you again. I mean, thank you to you and to the leadership and the teachers and paraprofessionals, custodians. I mean, that's awesome that we were able to provide that for students. Again, the workforce is really limited right now, and I know that our workforce worked really hard last year. So again, thank you to all of them for stepping up and providing another opportunity to continue to learn.
Yeah, I'll make sure to pass that along.
Please.
Yep.
Something that sticks out to me with all that you've presented is in Ms. McCullough's, one phrase of her statement, our team created a culture of belonging for students, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks so much. We've got a long night.
Thank you. Okay, so 11.1B, COVID protection plan amendments. This is an action item.
Sure. Yes, this is an action item. It's worth noting that we are actually not required to bring you the protection plan when we make the amendments. However, I think it's always good for the public to know what's going on, and I appreciate the board taking responsibility for our COVID protection plan. So here we are. This is probably something that's going to happen every 2 weeks. Things are rapidly changing as the Delta variant and everything else has changed with the pandemic. So highlighting changes, both California Department of Public Health and Sonoma County Department of Public Health have updated their guidance. Some are mandates. There's actually not a whole lot of mandates. Most of them are strong recommendations, and we're going to bring those to you for your approval. Foundational principle is that all students must have access to safe and full in-person instruction and to as much instructional time as possible. And we are still mandated to honor those full instructional minutes this year, which is a good thing. Kids need to be in school. Mm-hmm. So some exciting updates, actually. We are now, we got off the ground today, symptomatic testing. So a big issue has been that students who have symptoms or have potentially been exposed to the virus are quarantined. They're asked to stay home until they can have a test and show that they do not have COVID. And testing actually is in short supply around the state. I've talked to numerous parents. It can take them up to 2 or 3 days to get an appointment with their doctor, and then it's another 2 or 3 days waiting for your test results. And so you could literally have a headache and a cough on Monday, be fine on Tuesday, but you're not back in school until the following Monday, just because of the scarcity of testing. We believe we have a system in place. It will be hinged upon the availability of test kits that we get from the state. So far, so good. So we had our first symptomatic testing for students and staff today. We had eight folks come in and take advantage of that. We are going to resume it next week, hopefully Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so that in Healdsburg we are covered because there's a Monday community clinic at the community center. You can make an appointment. And then Saturdays at Alliance. So there will be testing 5 days a week in Healdsburg that our families can access, so we can get kids and staff back in school sooner once we're sure they're okay. So
How long does it take to get the testing results?
our test results. So our test results are deposited in a place where the company picks them up and they ship it off to the state lab in Los Angeles. They pick up 3 times a week, and so I believe they pick up Monday, Thursday, and Friday. Is that right? I was wrong. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then it takes 36 to 48 hours once they arrive in the lab, and they're overnighted FedEx. It's very, very quick. So 2-3 days usually. And that's the same testing service we've been using for employees and for our athletes. So our student athletes in high-risk sports, so right now basketball at the junior high and football at the high school are being tested, surveillance tested. We did that all last year for sports. And then it's been available to employees. It was mandated, I don't remember exactly when last year, around February, I think. And so we started that service for them. Folks do take advantage of it. And now I'm actually happy to report we are already fulfilling the mandate that the state and the county gave for unvaccinated employees to be tested weekly. That's already started in Healdsburg because there's very few. We're 96% still vaccinated in terms of our employees. Lunch cohorting. So one change is to have stable table assignments at the elementary campuses to allow for close contacts. This has been in practice, but we're updating the plan. You can go to the next slide. This is for contact tracing purposes. Seating charts have been requested for all classes. We just had not entered that in the plan. We got that pretty taken care of by the second week of school. Other schools were experiencing grade level quarantines and things like that because they didn't know who had been a close contact. And so we got this established very quickly.
Chris, can I go back to testing for a second and ask
Sure.
you a question? How are families being made aware of the availability of testing?
Yeah, so
and
we-
is it anybody who's symptomatic, just someone who's had close exposure? Like, can family
Yeah, so
members
that-
show up for our testing?
We don't want people who are for surveillance testing purposes coming to the same place where symptomatic people are coming.
Right.
So we're trying to separate that out. We do not yet have the capacity for surveillance testing with our students. We had an agreement with the state that we had entered into in August for them to come set up testing at least once a week at our sites to surveillance test kids. And we received an email last week from the state saying they weren't going to be able to provide that and that the State Department of Public Health would be contacting us in a couple of weeks to discuss. We are not waiting for them. I've learned through this just not to wait anymore. And so Diane's actively pursuing, and Franny both are actively pursuing other agencies who can come in and do some testing. And we have some really solid leads. Fairly confident we might have it up by the beginning of October for students. And we can't mandate that kids take tests, but it'll be a service that's available.
Thank you. I just think I'm just wondering about people if they have a child who has some COVID symptoms.
Yeah.
Is that who? Are they
That's
able
who's
to
invited,
avail
yeah.
themselves of this testing, and are they
Correct.
made aware of it by the
So
office staff, or?
It'll be made aware by the office staff when they're calling their kids in sick. So when we got it started, I did a district-wide communication to parents that announced it. And then we had a list of kids who would have qualified. I think there were 50 or so families that Karen populated in a text message that went just to those families saying, please come, there's a testing available for you. And then as we learn of kids, we're keeping master databases of who's sick and who's been quarantined and things like that. And so we can populate text messages from those lists to invite those families who are in need to come.
And if they show up with a sibling that they also want to have tested, is that a possibility as well?
Yeah, I mean, if the kid's we don't want students who are healthy coming with symptomatic
Right.
students. Right? And it's during the school day. So it is designed for kids who are already staying home. But yeah, if they're our student, we can test them.
Okay.
And,
Great.
And then staff as well. So
Okay, thank you.
extracurricular activities. This is really new. Both the state and the county came out with both mandates and guidance. A mandate is that masks are now going to be required for all participants in indoor sports, regardless of vaccination status. There had been some language last year around, except for when under tremendous exertion or something like that. That is gone. You're required. So, for instance, when you're playing in a basketball game, to wear a mask the whole time. There are sports such as swimming, water polo, and wrestling, where masks would present a hazard, and so you don't have to wear them for those. So we will be regulating that for the time being. Regular testing of all youth and staff involved with sports. We had done that for the high-risk sports last year. We're going to continue to do that. That's already been started. And then instruments, there's an interesting back and forth with the county and the state around musical instruments, because there's an international, I forget the name of the foundation, that did a lot of research, and there was a study done in Maryland around wind instruments, and they've actually created these drapes that are masks that the people who are playing the wind instruments can wear, and then a mask that actually goes over the end of your wind instrument to stop particles from spreading. And so if we are using those or some sort of modified face covering, we're allowed to be indoors with 6 feet, although they still recommend that we go outdoors for band. Right now, we are playing indoors and have been doing so with the modified face coverings, and all seems to be going well with Mr. Natelli's kids. So go to the next slide. That's it. Okay. That is the updates now. It is, tomorrow we'll get another email or a memo from the state and things will change, but we will bring them to you as things change. And again, I think it's good for the public to know what's going on and know when we have new guidance from the state and the county. Any questions?
Okay, so COVID-19 protection plan amendments. This is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve the COVID-19 protection plan amendment 11.1B.
Do we have a second?
No, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, 11.1C, educational institution staffing agreement with Maxim Healthcare Staffing. This also is an action item.
Yes. So I sent an email or a letter to parents this last week talking about the uncertainty that we're all feeling, as we had boil water and fires and arson and everything else in Healdsburg happening, and this pandemic. And the truth is that every level of government has been, caught by surprise, and there's a certain degree of failure as a result to be able to adequately address those issues. And there's frustrations all around. And we are scrambling to make sure we have the staff and the capacity to address these issues. And we've done a fantastic job so far, but the workload and the pace is not sustainable. And so this is an agreement to bring in 3 additional certified nursing assistants full-time through the end of December, I believe. Is that right? To help us with contact tracing, help us with some high needs, other health kind of things that we have with some students that are taking up nursing time, that's their job, but we need to free up time to be able to address things that are going on in the pandemic. And so it's a temporary situation, obviously, in the pandemic. That's why we're going through this service, and there is staffing shortages abounding everywhere. And they tell us that they hopefully will have people by the 27th of September, so we'll have folks to start in not too long. So we need your approval to be able to proceed with that. Any questions?
No, it's just great that we can do that, because I know that's a really big job, and thank you for doing it in the meantime.
Yeah, and frankly, we may bring an amendment to you in the not so distant future asking for more. I mean, depending on how things go. So we're monitoring it and trying to do our best to make sure that we can stay ahead instead of just reacting. So
Is the funding for this provided by the state or the feds?
this will come out of the COVID dollars, ESSER 3 funds that we got from the federal government. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. And I also think that, that for so many families, they're really just trying to figure out kind of what the marching orders are right now, when to keep their kids home, how to manage their distance learning when they're out. And really, they need to know that the school's going to be as responsive as possible about everything related to, their families testing and the safety of everyone on campus and exposures being timely and all those things. So I think it's really great that this is front and center, and that, as we all transition to this brave new moment, that we kind of know what's going on and know that we can trust that staffing levels are adequate. So
yeah, and I might editorialize a minute. We are under-resourced for sure in the state and in the county when it comes to public health services. We get contradictory information from public health routinely. And so we've become de facto public health officers at the schools, right? None of us have training to do this. We're getting it on the job. And so we are reacting right now. And like I said, this is a first step towards us having more capacity for it with some trained medical professionals to enable us to be more nimble and be able to make sure we can contact trace quicker and do what we need to do to keep everybody safe. Thankfully, things have gone, I mean, it feels harried when you're working in a school office right now. Contact tracing, Diane has spent almost every Saturday contact tracing and Sunday. But in terms of percentage, we've had 18 cases of COVID in the schools in August and September. That's it. 18 positives. And that's actually on our dashboard that was just updated today. So far we're doing extremely well compared to other school districts, other places that you read about. So.
Okay, thank you. So this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the educational institution staffing agreement with Maxim Healthcare Staffing?
So moved.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next, we have 11.1D, Healdsburg High School FFA overnight field trip request. This too is an action item.
Yeah, so ordinarily this would be a consent item and we'd routinely approve it. But this is not a routine year. And so we're bringing this forward for intentional discussion. We have a recommendation from our county public health agency not recommending overnight field trips. They recommend us not doing them, okay? I personally, and I think the spirit of Healdsburg Unified School District throughout this pandemic is to A, keep everybody safe as much as possible, but B, create opportunities for kids so that we can get back to as normal as we can reasonably be. I have reviewed with the teacher and with Principal Jones-Kerr this trip. There are 7 students that would be going to the National FFA Convention. Every student is vaccinated who would be going from Healdsburg High School. There are precautions in place through both FFA and the teacher. We will have waivers that they sign, giving really the parents the choice to make instead of us making the choice for the kids if you do approve the plan. And again, I think we've taken reasonable precautions to ensure their safety. I think it's an opportunity for kids that they deserve and will never forget. And so I'm really committed as these things come. We don't get a lot of overnight requests. Honestly, it will be FFA and maybe an athletic team making the playoffs. That will be the overnight request. The only other one is 5th grade camp usually. And I don't see that happening this year for obvious reasons. So anyway, so it's before you for action tonight. I don't know if you have any specific questions. I do believe we have a public comment about it. So before we do questions, we can have the public comment.
So Jamie can. Yay. Hi, Jamie.
This is unusual, but exciting. Good evening, trustees.
Hi, good evening.
I wanted to come tonight and just express my support for this field trip. Both of my boys attended. I actually attended one year with one of my children, and it is a phenomenal experience for these students. I think I would agree with Superintendent Vanden Heuvel that I would love to see the district give the families the opportunity to say yes or no for their own children. But as far as the experience itself, it is like none other. And I would love to see the kids have the chance. They missed out last year. And so I'm in full support of having the board approve and let the families choose. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie.
Any questions or discussion from the board?
Do you want to point out what you found, just to make it public, the typo?
Just the point of order, I guess, on the agenda, it talks action, and on the heading of this item, it says discussion.
Yeah, on the backup, there was one line where we missed it. It's an action item. Yeah, thank you.
Public.
Yep,
I'm assuming this is an action item.
This is an action item, yeah. So we are asking for you to approve or not tonight, yeah.
So I just have a couple of comments, and you've spoken to them, I guess, in essence. I mean, we want these opportunities for our kids, there's no question. My concern is COVID protocol. And I have gone through, actually a couple times, I went through it a few days ago and then again today, to see if there's any questions I have. I don't have any questions about FFA's protocols. I mean, it says wear a mask, keep your distance, be outside, et cetera. It is my hope, should this be approved, that all cautions are again repeated to those 7 individuals or students that are going constantly during the time that they're away, so that they are very clear that even though Indiana may say one thing, we're coming from Healdsburg and we are very cautious. We don't want anybody to get sick. I don't want them to come back with hay fever or a cold, and certainly not with COVID. But I fully support this at this time.
If I will add, if there's anything I can say about FFA is that they are extremely good at rules. So you will note in their protocol, the first thing they say is it is permissible for a mask to be part of your FFA uniform, right? So they are really focused on the rules and making sure the kids follow them. And so I do have every confidence that they will take the precautions that they say they're taking.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the Healdsburg High School FFA overnight field trip request?
I'll move to approve the Healdsburg High FFA overnight field trip request.
I'll second.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
How exciting. Okay, so 11.1E, Healdsburg Unified School District student enrollment and staffing. And this is a report.
Yeah, so we do this yearly, reporting back to you on where we are in terms of enrollment and numbers. And so we're going to take you through what it looks like currently in every school. So you will see here Healdsburg Elementary School, and when we say Healdsburg Elementary School, we're talking about both the HES and the FMC campus, TK through 5th grade. We are decreased 3 under our projection, but from last year we're down 48 students. And so this is, I believe, we don't have the year-to-year very far back, but this is more accelerated than we've seen in the past. I think there is a direct correlation. It's coming. There is a direct correlation to the pandemic. So we're down 48 kids combined at the elementary schools. You can keep going. HJH, HHS, so you see here the secondary numbers. We projected 827 for this year. We're at 815, so 12 under the projection and a total of 28 under what we were at last year in terms of enrollment. So go ahead, Debbie. So when you look at the district totals, you see that we are 70 kids. So from June, we're 63 kids less. From CBEDS, which is in October, we're 70 kids under where we were last year. So significant drop in enrollment, I would say. Continue. If you do the 5-year comparison, you can see the numbers there. So yeah, so 80, yeah, it's actually not accelerated. 80 from 17, 18, 91, and then in 18, 19, 26, 19, 20, and then 97 and 71 the last 2 years, which would be reflective of the pandemic. So in the last 5 years, when you look at that number, that's a lot of kids that were down in terms of enrollment, 365. And, I stand before you today saying it is time for us to talk about how small is too small. We are well-resourced. We have the capacity to potentially absorb more students. There's a number of ways we could do so. Certainly, I think it's time to talk about interdistrict transfer policy and whether or not we should open that up for the next school year. And there's talk of district consolidation in places at certain points in time, so that might be a discussion we'd like to have too. But we are shrinking, and we all know that it's not families that are moving into Healdsburg, so I don't think that we're going to have a sudden change in population bringing students in. That said, we may get some kids back. Certainly there are families that during distance learning times chose to go to private school because they were in person, and perhaps we'll get some of those students back in time. But
that was my question. Do we have any students in independent study?
We have 14, I think,
district-wide or
in the distance learning program that is through the Windsor Unified School District.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I just signed 2 in the last week, so 12 to 14. Yeah, 14. It was 12. Between 12, we had one come back. So 12 to 14 kids.
And that's
yeah.
K-12.
K-12. Yeah, most have chosen to come back to school in person. Average class size. This is really nice right now. We have 8, we'd actually like more kids in TK, right? We have 8 kids in TK currently. I just did a read aloud there last week, and it was very cute, and it's very small. And but we're working on getting some more enrollment there. Grades K2, we're averaging about 16 students per class, which is a really manageable number, I think, for our staff. Same in grades 3, 5, 19. That is fairly unprecedented when you look at upper elementary grade level class size in most public school districts. So that's really nice. And then even when you look at average class size, and we just looked at your average English and math class, so looked at the sections at the junior high and the high school. On average, in 6-8, we're at 23.5 in English and math, and then at 9-12, we're at 24.7. So we have nice class sizes right now, so that needs to be part of our discussion. Where do we want to maintain? How do we guest students in without, if this is a commitment we want to make without losing this? But I do think it's time for the conversation. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I mean, I would just add that I'm really saddened to see that we only have 8 TK students enrolled this year. I do, in fact, think part of it is due to COVID, but I think there's a piece missing that maybe we're not understanding there, whether that's transportation or other things happening in our families, or maybe it's outreach from us, like something's happening there. And as much as I love the average class size number in each of the classrooms from K through 12, I think this is a reflection of what's happening citywide, right? Like, who are we pushing out of our city? Who can afford to live in Healdsburg? But then again, I believe it's 64-point-something% of our students are students of color. And I think that number is going to keep shrinking if we don't do something citywide. Like, this is not just a
district
issue, a district issue, right? This is what is happening, who can afford to live here, who's coming into town. And yeah, I'm really disappointed to see what's happening with our school district.
Yeah, it is.
In terms of numbers.
Directly corresponds to housing issues and affordability in the city of Healdsburg, obviously.
There's definitely pros too, though, right?
There are.
I mean,
Yeah.
As a teacher, having 17 kids in my class in kinder, how beautiful. I mean,
And
is.
as
Yep.
a
what an
student,
opportunity.
and as
the
a
ability
student
to meet
too,
the
the
needs.
opportunity that
Right.
the student has obviously dramatically increase as well. But who's getting pushed out is, you know.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, and I think there's a way to maintain relatively small class size and be able to guest students in should we decide to do that. And that's going to, we're not making a decision tonight about that. I'm just suggesting that we talk about it this year.
Yeah.
So that'll be in months to come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like
Yeah.
to talk about it. And I have to say that just my gut response to these numbers is that these are, aside from TK, which is I put in a different category for a number of reasons. This is a wonderful class size, and I'm going to be so interested to hear from teachers over the course of this year about what how their students are doing and how they're doing with class sizes, because this class size, is half nearly half of some of the classes that my kids were in when they were at FMC. And I know that so many of the issues that we were coping with in terms of just classroom order, in terms of students being able to, really have work that was appropriate for them and all these things, and attention from the teacher, which is so often really needed, just that personal connection and appropriate work. And, that's just so much more possible in a classroom with 16 students than it is in a classroom with 29 students or whatever.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I'm just really going to be interested to hear how this year plays out, especially given that last year was such a strange year. You know, do we find that there's just a lot of good healing and learning that goes on in environments where there's such a great student-teacher ratio and other supports in the classroom as well? So,
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, and personally, I would like to see these class size averages stay this way for a couple of years because honestly, I think the learning loss that students have experienced is massive. And I mean, I know in the district that I work in, we have intermediate teachers that are like, how do I teach foundational skills? These kids can't read. So to have this kind of this low class size this year especially, and maybe even next year, I think is really critical to the success of our students. And like Trustee McGowan, I want to see the data and how that small number has impacted student learning.
Yeah. Besides TK, it could go up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I feel like TK is in a different category, but we're talking.
And universal TK is coming.
Right.
Right. So that's something that's going to change anyway. The way TK is structured, just statewide in terms of birthday, only half the year's kids are eligible is strange. So I'm excited actually for universal TK. There's some issues with the bill, but we're working on it, and I think it's a good thing for kids. So.
Chris, do we know the demographics for the TK students?
We do. Yes. I don't know them off the top of my head, but we have them. Yeah.
We shared that with them, right?
Oh yeah, that was in the update 2 weeks ago
Yeah.
with the board. Yeah, if you look at that, and if it was actually multi-year demographics. So. Okay, thank you. This is just a discussion item.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to 11.1F, Acosta Educational Partnership. This also is a discussion item.
So this particular agenda item is discussion, not action, because you all are not approving a contract per se. This is more informational. This is a partnership with Costa Educational Partnership and Corazon Healdsburg. As is noted in the documentation inside the packet, this project started about 2.5, 3 years ago, and it was when Superintendent Vandenheuvel was invited to be a part of a panel that Dr. Acosta was on and had been put on by Corazon. And there was some mutual interest there, and thankfully Corazon Healdsburg is so excited about this that they are doing 100% of the fundraising to pay for this project for the district to engage in, to provide professional development, support for the board, and better connections with community partners like Corazon. There, has been Curtis and Carlos did the Zoom kickoff for us at the beginning of this past school year. They led about 22 of our educators through the Ethnic Studies Institute this past spring, and we just landed dates today, actually, to move that cohort forward in order to start working on how does the Ethnic Studies Institute information that they got start to hit the classroom in the teaching and learning. So that work will likely begin in the next couple of weeks with those 22 educators that want to continue. We'll make the offer for a second Ethnic Studies Institute to get kicked off with teachers who are ready and willing to do that. Staff members, paraprofessionals could be included in that. I know we have probably one librarian who really wants to participate. I'll let you figure out who that is. Yes, Healdsburg is a small place. This is, it's one of these things, we've talked about this in this board meeting before. We know this is really, really important foundational work to make our vision and our mission and our new board policies around equity and anti-racism happen. We also understand that there's a lot going on right now, and we have no subs. So doing professional development where we're pulling teachers out of the classroom is not right now, not only because of no subs, but You talk to the teachers, they need to be with their kids. We're still building community. We're still building routines. So we're kind of trying to do this and keep things going while also being super aware of the context in which this work is happening and that the pandemic is still here. We have a lot going on. Teachers are still constantly altering their scope and sequence and where they're at based on what kids need. So we're going to press on. The Ethnic Studies Cohort 1, like I said, the teachers that are ready to take what they learned in that institute and start embedding it in their classroom, they'll be given that opportunity. Cohort 2 will start. We hope we get another 20 teachers, right? There's less than 100 teachers in this district now. So just making these available. And at some point, we hope that all teachers will have gone through the Ethnic Studies Institute, and we'll see how that goes, whether we continue to make it offering or start pushing it into more of the district PD days that all staff are at. The youth forum in the documentation you see, so Carlos and Curtis worked with Marcy Becerra students last year during distance learning. They are excited and want to keep going, but we want to broaden the work. We have an active ethnic studies club, and I think Principal Kerr, Jones Kerr, had lunch with the Ethnic Studies Club folks today, trying to learn her new school and learn the kids that are there. So the youth forum, we are going to be getting some support, and what that looks like is going to depend on what the youth want. We're going to let that be really told to us by the kids. What do they want to do? What we say, we've got these 2 experts, we've got teachers and other people that want to help you. We're calling it a youth forum so we can listen and learn from our kids. We want them to tell us what that needs to look like. So that's going to be youth-led. And then lastly, we hope when you all are ready to possibly do some additional board work. So you guys got some trainings. The Corazon Healdsburg board has also gotten a number of trainings, more intensive trainings even than we have here in HUSD, and starting possibly to do a better job of blending these 2 community organizations of school district and community and starting to do some combined work possibly. So this is, like I said, it's informational because you're not approving the contract, but it is something that I and others spend a lot of time thinking and planning and making happen in conversation with our teachers, our administrators, and Carlos and Curtis. So launching in 3 weeks. There's a bunch of documents in there, and I didn't want to make a ton of PowerPoints, but you've got the ethnic studies teaching model, the stuff that people who have been through the training will be familiar with. So I thought I would include that in case members of the public are looking through the packet as well. Any comments or questions?
Well,
you don't need to raise your hand. Okay.
I know. I feel schoolish.
Yeah, we can't break it.
No, I think this is great that we're continuing this. I have, I guess, a request. I have a couple of requests or questions anyway. One is that the first cohort that's been through this and hopefully will continue, I would be very interested to hear from them. I don't know what that might look like,
Sure.
but I would very much like to hear, from them, however they choose to present to us. And I would also suggest that they share that, and maybe they're already doing this, with their staff at their sites. I'm, again, very pleased that it's certificated as well as classified, that we involve all of our learning community, if you will. And I look forward to working with them, hopefully in person, with the ACOSTA group this year. So
yeah, we're getting some dates for a hybrid model. So some of it would be on Zoom and some of it will be when they're in person. Right. They're working with Santa Rosa City as well. Quite a big project working with Corazon. So they've got some other work in the region. Curtis is in Arizona, but Carlos is here in Napa. So a little bit easier for him to get over here. But yeah, the idea behind the trainings this year is they would be a hybrid model of Zoom and in person, and that would include any work that they do with you guys as well.
And then, finally, a shout out to Corazon for providing the funding for this for our community, again, our school community, but certainly for the whole community.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only funding, but I've had more conversations with the personnel at Corazon because of the connections we're making through this work. So there's always more work to be done at the end of the day. And when we have projects like this, we have to talk to each other, right? We have to combine as community and school districts. So I'm really appreciating getting to know more of the folks who work for the organization. Yeah.
Great.
Erin, will this become mandatory for all staff personnel at our district?
That's a really good question. Mandatory is an interesting word.
Required.
Yeah, right. You've been a teacher, right? So there's always this balance of making sure that we're listening to teachers and what they need. Obviously, this is something the board is very invested in, as are we. I will say, I think that making sure that we're providing humanizing education and that we're not exacerbating inequities that are inherent are going to be mandatory, right? What that looks like and how that plays out, I think will be different for every teacher depending on, a lot of different factors, their capacity in terms of, time for professional development, kind of where they're at, what their own background is, their own education and training. But in terms of using the ethnic studies tenets and that being a central part of our curriculum instruction and what we believe in do, yeah, that's not negotiable as far as I'm concerned as your CNI director. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. All right, I'm going to step off for a minute.
Oh, I have one question.
Oh, sure.
Or actually, I really just wanted to echo what Mike said. Kind of all of what Mike said, I agree with. And I am just really interested in hearing feedback from those who've participated already and sort of what, just how it's going. I know I found the board workshop that we did really useful and transformative and interesting. And I just, I'm interested in how that's going to work in the classroom.
I'd be happy to put it out there to the 20 or so people that participated and said, hey, there's interest in a board presentation. Who wants to play? So I'll put that on my to-do list. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else on this topic? Oh, okay, thanks.
So before we move on, I want to publicly apologize to Trustee McAllister because I keep saying McGowan. This hasn't kicked in yet. I'm so sorry.
It's totally no problem.
Okay, so now we are on resolution number 22-02, Week of the School Administrator.
So I want to start by saying this year, in the last year, unlike any other years in education, this is, I think, my 24th year. I'm not going to try to do the math, but I think that's right. Is unlike any other we've encountered for everybody who works in schools. And especially this year is almost more work than last year was because we are trying to do everything we can as normal as possible with full populations and then dealing with quarantine and the pandemic and kids at home who need work and parents with questions that we don't have the answers to and public health that give us information that sometimes makes sense. And we get caught in between. Every employee is working really hard right now and stressed, honestly. And it's amazing that we continue to go as well as we do. I walked through a couple campuses over the last week, and in the classrooms, it's beautiful. Kids are in there, they're learning. It feels normal, besides masks. The teachers are doing a fantastic job. And, I could talk about everybody here, but we're here to talk about our administrators. Our administrators are doing an amazing job leading their staff. They're doing an amazing job serving as public health officials, navigating the guidance, answering parents who are upset because they don't understand the guidance that we're giving them that we may or may not understand either, and just fielding all kinds of questions and continuing to provide leadership and the assurance to their staff and parents that things are going to be okay and that we're here for kids. And so I'm so grateful for the leadership team we have here in Healdsburg. Always willing to lend a hand. We had administrators doing symptomatic testing today with people. Oftentimes the last people in the parking lot, you can see their cars there when it's dark and the lights are on in their offices. So grateful. I'm not going to read the resolution, but more than any other year, our administrators have really stepped up to the plate, and they do it regularly, but this year has just been extraordinary. So I want to say thank you to all of them. We have a couple here in the audience. Thank you, guys.
We have all three of them.
Yeah. And yeah, they deserve to be honored. So any questions or comments from the board?
No, just, thank you for being here and for your leadership. And that heavy lift that you're doing, especially this year, because it seems like, I agree with Chris, it just seems like the work has multiplied big time this year. We thought it'd be easier, and it seems like it's just much more challenging. So thank you for all you do to keep everything calm and working for the benefit of our students and families and our staff. Thank you.
So this is a resolution,
This is a resolution.
so it's a roll call vote.
Yep, vote. We need to have a motion to.
I have to make a comment. I'm sorry. Crystal's going like, really? And superintendent talked to this, but I actually started a list, and I go, if I read the list, I'll miss somebody and I'll feel really awful. But school administrator is, the people here. I'm looking at, if I call up people, then our human resources, support services, CBOs, head of maintenance and operations, certainly our principals and our vice principal, our superintendent. And I made a list, but I won't go through it while I'm kind of doing that. Cafeteria or lead bus drivers, all these administrators make this work. And again, to the point at hand, I want to say some things that I'm not supposed to say because it's not proper language. It's been a really crappy year. Last year, and we thought it was going to be better. And my words, pardon for the illusion, but they didn't put the lid down on the toilet. It's still a crappy year. And we're getting through it because of our school leaders, because of leadership in this district that goes on and on and on. And as the superintendent said, y'all work long hours, over and above. And you're going, I didn't sign up for this. Well, yeah, you did. You just didn't know it. And so I just give you my heartfelt thanks. And please share that with the people that aren't here. Because without you, how do I say it? The toilet would back up.
Yeah, we can stop.
Yeah. But thank you is what I want to say.
I want to add to that they, teachers and administrators and our support staff are doing an amazing job of insulating our students from the stress. It's hard for everybody, employees, and we're short-staffed, right? I mean, that's part of the magic administration. Jeff Rainey, I think, is probably subbed in a classroom every day this year, just about. They're doing things they've never had to do before. Our teachers are doing things they never had to do before. But I think I've talked with kids, and when I'm in the classroom, for the most part, kids are happy to be back. It's a happy place. They're learning, and they're grateful. And so kudos to the entire staff, but the administrators especially for giving that sense of calm in the middle of the storm.
Yeah, Chris, I wanted to since Mike decided to comment, I'll comment too, and just say that that just very personally, that the 3 students that we have at Healdsburg Unified School District have returned to their normal stoked selves pretty much immediately when they went back to school and come home balanced and happy and exhausted in a good way, and seem like they're back to the life that they loved before in from a new and mature perspective. And I just really think that's because of everyone's hard work to do what you said, to insulate them from the stress, and to create an environment where they're learning and happy and they can socialize. And I just think it's amazing. And I know how much work and care has gone into it. So thank you.
So we do need motions and roll
Yep, we
call.
do need a motion. So do we have a motion to approve resolution number 2202, Week of the School Administrator?
I will motion. Super thankful as well. Obviously, we know that the educators are at the front of the house, right? They're the people that our students see, and the administrators sometimes kept in the back how they do all the behind the scenes stuff. So super thankful. Super thankful for Karen for we wouldn't be here doing our job if Karen wasn't so attentive with us. So yes, I would love to motion resolution number 22-2, Week of the School Administrator.
And I'll second.
Great. Okay, this is a roll call vote. McGowan? Just kidding.
Oh, McGowan.
Rose McGowan. I'm not that famous yet. Yeah. Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have 11.1H, 2021-2022 Plato Edmentum Credit Recovery Course List at Healdsburg High School and Marcy Becerra Academy. This is an action item.
So in normal times, this would have been brought to you in the spring of this past year. Given that things were topsy-turvy, we were all focused on bringing our kids back to school. We had our principal retiring and assistant principal not present. It slipped through the cracks. That, and we wanted to reevaluate our course selections, right? We want to make sure that we don't just rush this through and say, well, those are the courses we offered before. Okay, let's do it again. So, I knew we were kind of missing on this and that we'd bring it forward. We slowed down a little bit right when Amy took the helm, Amy Jones-Kerr, trying to help them understand how we use online courseware. This is primarily used for credit recovery. Every now and then we get kids that want to speed ahead. They need to graduate early. They want to take a course that they came from another school or something like that, but mostly used for credit recovery. So we evaluate the course. We did find that Plato discontinued the courses that we were offering for 11th grade college and career seminar. So essential career skills and California Introduction to Finance that are lined out on this list. And then you can see in yellow two very similar but updated courses. So personal and family finance. And then instead of the essential career skills, it is now workplace and internship readiness, preparing for work life and semester. And those two just brief course descriptions, not outlines, are in the packet. So we are asking for action. The only two changes are swapping out courses that Edmentum has discontinued, bringing on the newer, updated, more modern, in my opinion, courses that students would take if they had a problem with 11th grade seminar. Any questions about this?
So this is an action item as well.
Right.
I do have a clarifying question.
Sure.
Erin, so they swapped essential career skills for 11th grade with personal and family finance?
Kind of. It wasn't a one-for-one. They gave us a list of things that were similar, and so we look at what do we do in our seminar class.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the options that Plato has, that one seemed to meet our needs most closely to what they would experience in the 11th grade seminar, which a big part of the seminar class is learning how to budget.
Mm-hmm.
So they go through an activity where they have to take a number of surveys of where do you want to live? What kind of a lifestyle do you want? And then they try to figure out what kind of a job they're going to need and how much money they're going to need to make. And it's really interesting to watch kids say, yeah, I want a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house in the hills. And then they start figuring out what kind of a job. So these courses we chose that most closely align to the curriculum that they would be experiencing in the classroom-based course. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have to say I do like the course selections better that you that we're trying to adopt this school year. I think they align more with what our students really are seeking.
Yeah.
So totally.
Yeah. And honestly, we hope they don't have to take these. This is just if they receive a poor grade in the college and career seminar course. Like I said, every now and then, some kids, it doesn't work on their schedule. They're speeding through something. So we want to make sure that they have an option.
How many students typically use this each year?
Really depends. We thought we were going to have a lot more kids using it, but when AB 130 kind of changed things for us, which basically gave last year's seniors and gave last year's seniors and this year's seniors the opportunity to take a pass-fail. So some kids take this for to improve their grade. They may have gotten a D in second semester 10th grade English, and then they realize as an 11th grader, a D ain't going to cut it if you're going to apply to a 4-year school. So they improve the grade. So some kids did pass-fail for that. So we saw our numbers dwindle for that. I think right now we probably have about, and we're going to talk in Learning Center, which is next, but We have anywhere from 10 to 30 kids taking coursework online, and they're guided by one of our instructors. So they're all given a credit recovery teacher that they have to check in with at least once a week. And, that's the tests get unlocked by that teacher. The tests are taken in a proctored environment. So they're learning online, but when it's examination time or they're like, I don't get this, I'm taking second semester algebra 2 or IM2 and I don't understand what to do, they have a designated teacher that they go to that we time card to spend that extra time with our kids. Yeah, did I answer your question? Okay.
Okay, so this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the 2021-2022 Plato Edmentum Credit Recovery Course List at Healdsburg High School and Marcy Becerra Academy?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Next, we have updated Healdsburg High School courses, Learning Center, and Designated English Language Development. This is a discussion item.
Again, if we were all following the rules and doing things in the timeline that we normally would, this would have come to you in the late winter, early spring. Given that time was spent doing other things, we had a transition of leadership, and generally this would be brought to you by the high school principal. But it didn't feel like it was fair to throw this on Amy as she's getting her feet under her in Healdsburg. So seeing this one through, Diane was a big part of helping Bill Halliday and the high school staff concept the Learning Center course. So if you go into the description, we thought for a time that we would have many more kids with credit recovery needs than we do. And I mentioned the pass-fail. The other is that AB 130 stipulates that students can graduate with the bare minimum of high school graduation requirements by the state, and that we can't overarch. If kids have fallen behind, we cannot force them at this time to meet the Healdsburg High School graduation requirements. But we do have about 20 students right now who are severely behind in credits. They are so far behind that we can't catch them up in summer school. We can't, even if they're a 10th grader, 11th grader, and they took both sessions of summer school, we would have a really hard time catching them up. Many of these students also can't take summer school because they need to work. They need to provide childcare for their family. The compressed summer school environment where they do a semester in 3 weeks, 3 hours every day, plus independent study work, doesn't work for them. So the Learning Center is a course that we're currently running 2 sections of. Both of those classes have, I think one class has, I looked the other day, 10 kids in it. And I think the other kid has 12 currently, but 2 of those kids will likely finish their coursework at semester. And so we have a plan to transition them out. They're seniors, so their summer school opportunity is gone. So we have a credentialed teacher who's also a special educator in this class. So she's got some tricks up her sleeve in terms of special supports for kids. They also have a credit recovery teacher who is credentialed in the subject area. So they spend a class period with our special educator during their class. But if they're earning credits in second semester math, IM1, that special educator may not have the content chops to help that person, to help that student get through second semester IM2 or even second semester IM3 for that matter. So they have another teacher assigned to them that they can go to, or the classroom teacher, Emily Decept, can go to get some help. So we got, I think, the best of all worlds here in that they have designated time during their school day with the teacher to work on their coursework and honestly to get some support in their current classes, right? They've got some skills that are missing from failing classes, and then a core academic teacher who will sign off on that the appropriate course, that they did what they were supposed to do in Plato. So we don't anticipate having Learning Center forever and ever at a comprehensive high school, but given COVID and we're using COVID funds, this is being supported by the specialized COVID dollars that we're getting from federal and state to support these sections. So that's the first course outline. You want me to stop there and then we could talk about ELD? Any questions or comments about Learning Center? And these are discussion tonight. It didn't feel fair, even though, you know, we're out of timeline. So let's be out of timeline for one more month. We're discussing these tonight, and if it pleases the board, we would bring these back on consent as we normally would when we do course approval at the board level at the next meeting. So you guys are not approving these tonight. You'd have time to ask me or Ms. Jones-Kerr or Diane or anybody else.
Sorry if I missed this, Erin. So
Yeah.
this is happening now or not?
Yes.
So it is already happening.
It is happening.
Okay.
Good, actually. Diane and I have had a lot of communications with the counselors, with admin, and the teacher. And, you know, it's a fly it as you build it kind of course, right? How many kids? What classes do they need? AB 130 threw us for a little bit of a good loop. And the teacher who's teaching it, she anticipates that there's going to be some kids other than the two that just have a little bit to do that might finish their coursework this school. They might get through 3 semesters or even 4 semesters in the year. And so we were like, oh, then what, right? And it says in here that if there's one in a 7th period, so that 7th period they could drop and go to a 6-period day. And then there's a 3rd period, but all but 2 of the students said, no, I want to stay in here for the year. I need this help. I like being here. I like getting the help. It gives me time. So yeah, we think it's going okay. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to move on to ELD, and if you guys, something pops in your mind. As I said in the cover sheet, you know, we've been at this work to improve our English language development program for some time. The fateful March 2020 board meeting that Dr. Chris Nichols presented at, our external evaluator, that was the last time we were in person besides this past month, right? So when we heard the recommendations from Dr. Chris Nichols as the external evaluator, the very next day we were preparing to close schools. And so, you know, things have continued to move. Last year, we did what Dr. Nichols and others have suggested to us, and that we are assigning the designated English language development class by grade level. So all the 8th graders were together last year, taught by the 8th grade ELA teacher. It worked well. The teachers who experienced that at the junior high reported that they felt like that meshing language acquisition with content that's called for in the ELD standards was, they were able to make good on that promise, on that dual obligation. So we have scheduled our 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders that way this year. And so there's a 9th grade ELD class, there's a 10th grade ELD class, and then a combo of 11th and 12th graders. They're small class sizes. They range between 12 and I think our biggest class is the 10th graders that has 17 in it. And as it says in the course outline, trying very hard to maximize that student's academic success with the language acquisition. And so they go, you know, you can think about it as a Venn diagram. All the kids now have a grade level English class. They have an ELD class. And we're trying to find that sweet spot where those classes can support and coalesce together. So that's what's being described here. We also, in the designated English language development class, we piloted the EL Achieve curriculum that you all had approved. And so we are continuing with that EL Achieve curriculum that is the core content for the designated ELD class. So there is specific lessons for the language acquisition section of the course, but also working with the grade level content ELA course teachers to use some of the study sync materials that are for English language learners, if that makes sense. The Venn diagram thing, I think, does it for me.
Do any of these classes fulfill the A through G requirement?
No, there's a support. So our current, our highest level ELD course does, but these kids are all in an English language course now. They're in an they're in an English language arts class. So they're not, they can't, you can't, I shouldn't say they can't. It doesn't make sense for them to get English credit for this support class.
What about for newcomers?
We have 3 newcomers right now, and that newcomer course is not and nor would be eligible for UC approval. Yeah, it's the only course that can be approved for UC is the highest level of the continuum. And we do have a course on the books that is A to G approved. That's the course that we had before. And it was when we were leveling courses, so the level 4 ELD course. But with 99% of our kids being in that, bridging to advanced, it made more sense to really buckle down and support them in their grade level English language course and have them get good grades and support the designated ELD in the different class. So that's what we're doing here.
Could I ask a quick question? So
yeah.
within the grade level, there are different levels of the ELD.
No, we only have, so 9th graders, all but our 3 newcomers have been with us for 7 or more years, right? They're all stuck at level 3, low 4.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Thank you.
So we hope to unstick them. It doesn't make sense to level anymore. And part of that is the transition that we've done in the lower grades. And we just get so few newcomer students. We have no newcomers at the junior high right now. None. Not a single newcomer. So it doesn't make sense to have all these different level courses for the population that we serve and the good work that we're doing in the younger grades because there are FEPing, except for this core group that we need to do things differently with. So like I said, this is discussion tonight. If you guys have any other questions or you want to follow up with myself or Ms. Jones-Kerr, the teacher, we have a new teacher who's very invested in these courses and these kids. I probably had more conversations with her over the last month than anybody else, and partly she's new, but she's very passionate about teaching English language development at the high school level, which is a good thing to see. Any other questions or comments about these 2 courses?
Thank you.
No, I'm excited that we're using EL Achieve, though. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff so far. I think we'll get into it a little bit more and be able to see. I think one of the hitches last year is that so much of it is about use of the language and dialogue. And when we were Zoom schooling, it just wasn't there. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be a different world.
Thank you. Okay, so we are at 11.1J, public hearing for sufficiency of materials. This is a public hearing. The Board of Trustees has set this time aside to hear public comments on the sufficiency of materials, Williams, and specified subjects according to Education Code 60119.
Do we have any public comments? No public comments.
Okay.
We can close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing.
You need a gavel. Where's your gavel? You get to
you
gavel.
don't have
I
to.
tease it.
Right? This is your favorite part. You get to use your gavel.
Jamie, come up. All right. Next, we are at reports.
Oh, you got to do this
Oh,
part still.
sorry.
Yeah, so now,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
now I get to do my honor. Come on, Ursula,
Sorry,
you know
so
this part.
sorry.
Right?
Okay, so we're at 11.1 K, resolution number 22-03, sufficiency of instructional materials, and this is the action item.
Yeah, so each school year, as it says, I'm just going to read from the cover sheet. Before the 8th week of school, district staff is required to determine if there are sufficient materials for core content in the areas of K through 12, foreign language for grades 7 through 12, health, science, lab equipment for 9 through 12. So at each site, we've reviewed the materials on hand, identify any gaps. This year, each site is certified that there are a sufficient number of materials on hand. We've bought a little bit of stuff here and there, but I gotta say, this is a wonderful district to work in. We have amazing amount of curriculum, new curriculum, online, print, otherwise. We do still get an in-person visit, so Jeff and Erica have to gear up, and SCO comes and counts our materials for us. So So this is a leftover from being part of the No Child Left Behind folks, where we were considered to be in program improvement forever and ever. So a county office still comes to our elementary schools before the 8th week, and literally we do a show and tell, and we put it all out and they count it. And so that's happened. So this is the part where I get to say, as your curriculum director, on my honor, Girl Scout pledge, that I feel good that we have sufficient, not good, I feel more than good that we have sufficient instructional materials in all the subject and in all the core content areas. And we have a couple pilots going on. We got math pilot up at the high school going on. We'll be piloting hopefully history, social science in K-5 this year. So in the places where I wouldn't say it's insufficient, but it's outdated, it's time to look at new stuff. We'll be doing that through this year. And I know even we had a couple questions from teachers that are saying they're ready, which is exciting. So even in pandemic times, they're ready to do some piloting, particularly at high school math and K-5 history, social science. So it's an action item where I'm saying too, we do have sufficiency of materials.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 22-03, sufficiency of instructional materials?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and this is a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, now we're at reports. Time limited to 10 minutes per report. Do we have a HEF report?
I don't see a HEF representative. No.
Okay. Had a report? Hello. Good evening, Robin. I don't know, is it on?
Is the green light on, Robin? Huh.
Oh, now it's on.
There you go.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. So I've been thinking about what I want to say to the report tonight, and I hear a lot of times that administrators say that teachers are complaining. So being a mathematician, I just want to put out some facts. Superintendent Vanden Heuvel said that the employees are stressed. He's right. And it's really more stressful to arrive with less tools. Could you imagine going to work and your large computer screen's gone? They did arrive last week. Could you imagine going to work and there's one less copier? Can you imagine going to work and opening the cupboard to find not enough paper, pencils, Post-its, glue, scissors, and you're in elementary school? So the other word, average, I'm looking at the word average, which is central tendency in the middle. So looking at those class sizes, that average number looked great, but you have to realize that that number is between a low and a high. So what you were looking at was the middle, and there are other classes that are on the lower end of that middle, and there's other classes that are on the higher end of that middle. So I know that I have heard we want to take care of our teachers, but less is not taking care. Less is stress. So the Fitch Mountain teachers had a yard sale fundraiser, fact, to buy chairs needed for the staff room. They raised $350, which the principal now is holding for them. My question is, why are teachers raising money for staff room chairs? The contract clearly covers staff room and teachers' needs. So I know I'm supposed to be giving a HADA report. I'm just giving you some HADA facts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have a CSEA report? No. Board of Trustees. Anybody? No? Okay. All right, do we want to break for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay,
Go back at 5 to 8.
perfect. Personnel, 11.2A, certificated substitute pay rates for 2021, 2022. This is an action item.
All right, certificated substitute pay rates, but also a little sub history while you're at it. So basically, I'm not going to take it personal or anything, but when I started in Healdsburg, there were right around 100 registered subs in the district. Not all of them super active, and for a small district like this, that's actually quite a few subs, like about basically as many subs as teachers. And so I've included there for you just kind of like every couple of years, the decrease that's happened. And it's, for any number of reasons. Honestly, I think initially people dropped off because they weren't getting enough work. They weren't getting enough jobs in such a small district. But we haven't had increases very regularly in the sub pay, and I think that contributed to it as well. And then obviously with the school closures, basically no subs were working anywhere in Sonoma County. And even when school started resuming, I physically reached out to all of our subs, a lot of whom had been fully vaccinated themselves already, but even back in the spring, most of those folks were not ready or willing to go back into classrooms yet at that point, at that juncture. And then even with the start of this school year, because of the Delta variant and other things, and many of our subs are older people, and they've expressed to me personally, they're just not quite ready to go back into basically multiple classrooms to be multiply exposed to students. But we're doing our best to, encourage them with our safety protocols and explain to them about our processes for that. And again, similar to our staff vaccination rates, the sub vaccination rates are very close to 100%. There's a very small number who aren't yet fully vaccinated. And so I know the cover said we have 40. We do have 40 subs on our list, but not all of them are actively accepting jobs right now. So we have about a little shy of 30 that are. You can go to the next slide. And there is a Google sheet that Chris has access to and as well. And I check it out fairly regularly just to see where rates are at with our other neighboring districts in the county. And you notice with the board packet, I actually put the time stamp of when I looked at the document and attached it to my items, because literally it was being changed. There were people updating their rates, as I was working on my board items. I was like, stop. So you can see by the proposed rate that we're talking about would place us significantly high in the county until, of course, other people make changes. SCO will still be the highest, and Cloverdale does have a rate for their retirees, like a daily rate for their retirees that's a little higher than us. You can go to the next slide. So in terms of the pay rate here, so when I came on board in 2015-16, it was at that 115 full day, $70 half day rate, approved in 2011. And so we increased that effective January of 2016, so halfway through the 15-16 school year. And that was pretty much in line with
most of the districts in the county. But over, just prior to COVID, people had already been increasing their rates. And so our proposed increase would take effect October 1st. I put the note there that our retirees receive the A1 on our salary schedule, which is around 305 for long-term assignments. They receive that like from day one. They don't have to wait till the 21st day for that. And at the very least, I would like to see us review the rates every 2 years, but initially we may have to actually look at it sooner.
So I just want to clarify, so the retirees get, if they only sub for 1 day, they'll get that 305, right?
No, so
Only for long-term.
Only for
no, they
long-term.
get the regular sub rate unless they're in a long-term assignment.
Okay.
Which we've actually had several of our retirees do for us. And they're doing right now.
And remind me what long-term is?
So the majority of our long-term are going to be like teachers on maternity leave. And so I've got a couple of our retirees that are job sharing, for example, for someone that's out the first semester. It's usually something that's going to be more than 20 or 30 days because like someone on a sub permit, although that's just changed, yay, can usually only sub 30 consecutive days for somebody without having a full regular credential or a teaching permit for statutory leave. So
I noticed that the other districts for the retirees give a little bit of a bump. We don't get.
Just Cloverdale.
Just Cloverdale.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there are some, like Windsor, you can see like Windsor, they have a different retiree rate of 154 instead of 140. Yeah. There are a couple others, but they're not, they're still not 180. But, yeah.
So if I'm reading this right, currently we do 140. If it's from 11 to 20 days, it's 155. And then if it's over 20 days in the same assignment, it's range A, step 1?
Yes.
Okay, so what am I seeing for the proposed? I see 180. What is if it's...
So 180 full day, 100 half day, and I believe it's 195 for the next tier.
Okay.
And then at the 20 or more, then it goes to the 305.
The salary. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. So next steps, obviously, if you move forward with approving this rate change, I will be rapidly communicating out to both our active subs, which I have had conversation with some of them, so glad you're coming back. I'm bringing a approval, rate increase, hopefully that gets approved. But also reach out again to those folks that are kind of on the fence. I don't know, I'm not sure. And try and encourage them as much as possible. We've been putting communication out in Chris's weekly updates to the community. I've actually had this week 6 different people reach out to me, at least one of our parents, and then some other people that just heard from somebody who heard from somebody, that we need subs. A lot of it came from Chris, I think, spreading the word. Thank you, Chris. And just getting it out there. Obviously, I want to actually advertise for subs on EdJoin, where most educators do look, and maybe put some kind of blurb or something out on our website, and then work with our principals maybe to put things out on their social media, just kind of blast it wherever we possibly can. And there is a flyer that I'm working on, like disseminating, that came from SCO that kind of gives helpful links for people to register to be a sub and makes them aware of a lot of the hoops that have had to be completed before, being approved to be a sub are being relaxed. A lot of the fees involved with registering to be a sub are being waived by the state. So, they're trying to make it as easier, as possible to become a sub.
Have you considered advertising in the Tribune? I can see a big half-page ad or...
Yeah, I can definitely check into that.
And bus drivers or whoever else.
For sure. Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment. I think I really like the idea of paying our retirees a little bit more than our, off the street kind of subs, just because that comes off.
I know what you mean, yeah.
But, our retirees know our schools, they know the routines, they know the school rules, it's like they could just jump right in and kind of continue the flow a lot easier. And I don't know, I just think it's respectful to give them a little bit more than just any other sub that is not in our district, since,
Yeah, I'm open to that.
Yeah, I just think that would be really respectful of our retirees to offer them a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, you could motion to change the suggestion
what
and
would
do
you
that.
propose?
Yeah.
Give
How
me a
much more?
direction and I will follow it.
Yeah, so can we go back to that slide?
Go back.
I would say it makes sense to maybe do 195 for retirees. So you do 180 for everybody, 195 for retirees, and
Sure, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's just important to do that differentiation.
so it would take a board member to make the motion
So
to approve that.
approve. I motion to up the amount for our retirees in Healdsburg to be 195 a day and maybe 115 for the half day. To keep that kind of consistent, but
I'll second that motion.
all in favor?
Well, wait.
Oh,
So
wait.
let's make sure we're saying the right
sorry,
thing.
sorry.
So to clarify, the motion would be 180 for subs, right? In general, and then a retiree would be 195 for a full day. Half day for subs in general is 100. For retiree, you're saying 115, correct? And then of course we have our long-term tier that's already there and we've talked about. So,
Well, my question to the person who's making the motion is, if we're adding $15 to the daily rate, are you saying that when you go from 11 to 20 to add the $15 to that rate as well? Because right now it's 195, 11 to 20. So it would be, I can do this to 10. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Okay.
What are you saying?
So what
Well, when a retiree is in a long-term, any kind of long-term assignment, they would be placed on A1
Yeah, the
anyway.
305, right?
but we have an 11 to 20 day range
I hear what
at
you're saying.
195. Is it correct?
Yes.
Okay. The 1 to 10 day range is 180. The proposal is to up it for our retirees $15. At 11 to 20,
so before you vote.
the income, the sub rate is 195.
I see what you're saying.
Would we
So,
up it
yeah, so adjust
$15
that
as well for
$15
that?
as well.
So it's $15 over and above
Understood.
for those things. I'm asking if that's the proposal. I mean, if not, I would propose that.
Sure.
So we're basically, it's $15 over the normal sub rate for our retired teachers until they get to the long-term sub.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Clear as mud.
So before we vote, we have a public comment.
Okay,
Yeah.
Robin Doherty?
All right, so we were talking about the subs and being at the Healdsburg Junior High. When subs are invited to come there, a lot of them think, ooh, a 6-period day, I'll have 1 period off, I'll eat my breakfast when I get there. And then what happens at the junior high for some of the subs, because we were talking about why they might not want to be there, is they end up working sometimes, most of the time, 7 periods. So they end up teaching every class all day long as they run around to fill up empty spots. So rather than coming to work and working for 5 classes and having 2 preps on a regular day, or coming to school and having 1 prep per day, they end up filling any of the empty spots that weren't filled up and they need another sub for. And they don't, I'm not negotiating for them, but it's for the same amount of money, nothing extra for the extra that they do. And so some of the subs, and I do run around and talk to the subs and check on them while they're there. I do have a witness in the room that I ran around and checked on when that sub was there, just to make sure that they're okay. And if they need candy or something or coffee, I check on them. The concern that comes from the subs is, oh my gosh, I'm beat tired. I have just worked 7 classes without a rest period. So that could be an issue. The other thing to think about, and I don't want to comment, is the changes. We have people who are out on sick leave or maternity leave or something, and I'm looking at these prices going up, and I'm wondering what's happening to those people who are on contract out right now, and the prices are going up.
Can you say
The
that one more time?
differentials in pay.
Yeah,
People with out on sick leave or maternity leave or something, the prices have gone up, and I'm wondering what's happening with those people with their differential in pay with these numbers changing. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Fife?
Hi.
Hello.
So we really need subs, and I can't underestimate that enough. And we need to raise the sub rate to try to attract people to come and sub for us. But just to reiterate what Robin just said, I have concerns about new teachers who don't have a lot of sick leave, and they may run out of their sick leave, and then they get into a differential pay situation. So the higher that you raise the sub rate, the more it impacts those newer teachers and also people out on leave. So thank you.
Good point. Thank you.
Just differential pay rate is a contractual obligation we have. And so what happens when some teachers are on leave is when they go to the differential range, they receive the difference between what their salary is minus the sub rate, essentially. But it's for extended leaves and things like that. It's not just regular absences.
And then if I could further clarify, every leave instance is, of course, individual and unique. And so there is differential pay when a teacher or staff member is still considered disabled and under pregnancy disability leave, but under newish law for CFRA, the teachers are already, when they get under CFRA, when they're no longer disabled but still on leave, they're actually entitled to no less than 50% of their pay. So while it does have an impact as long as they're under that differential pay time period, it isn't as much of an impact when they're subject to receiving 50%.
Okay.
So in particular to new teachers whose daily rate is lower, they would never receive less than 50% of their pay.
Once they're under CFRA.
When they're at CFRA, yes, thank you.
Any other questions or anything I can help clarify?
Excuse? Oh, you can come back up without the card. It's fine.
I really want you guys to like me, but I don't think you're going to. So for some of the differential pay, so if a teacher's making $200 a day and she's being charged, or he's being charged $300 a day, how does that work out? There have been some teachers who've received a bill because they ran out of money. So I'd like for you to look into that.
All right, any other questions?
I don't have questions. Does anybody have questions?
So I move adoption for 11.2A, certificated pay rates, including the modification for retired teachers of an additional $15 per day rate until they get to long-term.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, 11.3 school business, amendment number 2 to the LLB agreement for the Healdsburg Junior High field construction project.
If the board doesn't mind, I think I'm going to sit here because I can't do the computer and look at my notes and fog my glasses all at the same time. So this amendment is for the track at the junior high. GCCI is the contractor that was doing the gym, and this is just an amendment to add it on.
Field, not track.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Field. So this is to add it on to their current contract so we don't have to go back out to bid. And the field is estimated at $3 million. And this is what you voted on a couple of meetings ago with the master plan. Is there any questions?
So do I read this correctly? It's an additional 175.8 thousand. I'm asking.
From
75?
175.
Did I read it incorrectly? I have a note here to myself, to you.
I'm not sure where you're looking.
No, what's the additional cost for this?
It's $3 million.
I'm sorry?
$3 million.
Okay.
Which is the number we had planned on. So basically what we're doing is incorporating into the gym project, the gym remodel.
Yeah, that's the number. It says total. Am I looking at it wrong? Thank you. So smart.
The original project was 6.9, and this is adding 3 million for the total to be 10. Is that what you're looking at?
We're looking
Apparently
at
I'm
page
not.
15.
Oh, I only printed up to page 13.
15.
Maybe this is just the locker room.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what I'm
these are
looking-
additional
Okay, so this is
fees
all
on
itemized,
the
et cetera,
gym
so-
locker room.
all
Yeah,
right.
that's old, actually.
All right. So this is.
You're
okay.
looking at the details of the previous
Yeah,
work.
of the
So
previous.
here's the full amount.
Okay, thank you, President Forrest.
So this essentially adds the field as part of the project that we
Right.
already awarded. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was, I think, asking. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the field turf proposal for the Healdsburg Junior High Field Project?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I just second. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, 11.3C, unaudited actuals, financials report. This is an action
I
item.
think we're going to do B.
Oh, sorry. Oh, so sorry. I approved the wrong one. So field turf proposal for the Healdsburg Junior High Field Project. That's an action item. Sorry about that.
So this is for the actual turf. This is a contract for the turf, so we don't have to go out to bid. This is a CMAS contract. And this is for the price of the turf and the installation.
So I don't have to look too ignorant. And what is the number for that proposal?
778,000.
That's what I got. Great, thank you.
Which is part of that 3 million number we just gave you.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was my confusion. Okay, so I will move for approval of 11.3B.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So now we're on the 11.3C, unaudited actuals financials report.
Okay. I'm going to start off with the budget cycle that shows you where we are. So we are currently doing the unaudited actuals, and this is the closing the books and starting off with our cash will get reset once we turn this over to SCO, and then we will start refining the budget to work for first interim. This is a recap of the year. It was odd. It wasn't what we expected. We weren't sure if kids were going to come back to school or not come back to school. We had money put aside for the kids to come back to school. Expenses moved rapidly. We've received or will receive $5.3 million in pandemic-related funds. And for me, this is just one full cycle of the budget, and I'm not quite sure what a normal budget is, but this is nothing that I've ever seen before. So starting with the unrestricted, this is showing that revenues came in almost 4% higher than what was budgeted at second interim. Part of this is at that time we didn't have our RDA funds for the installment. Expenditures came in much lower. Expenditures is a combination of things, a lot of it being salaries as well. We budget a lot of money for additional pay and different things that happen throughout the year. And with the kids out for so long, none of those funds were needed. And the biggest part of the expenses being lower is this is just the unrestricted. A lot of funds moved to the restricted side because of COVID funding. So here's the restricted side, which shows you revenues are 17% higher. That's how much COVID funding came in that we were awarded after the second interim. And then the expenditures actually came in just about exactly where we had them budgeted, but they would have been a lot less if we hadn't been moving all those funds, right? So it's kind of a wash. It's really skewed looking at it because it looks like we spent so much more there, but actually it was just moving the costs from one side of the house to the other because of COVID funding. So contributions. Oh, and I did want to say on the restricted side that we don't have, a lot of the COVID funds aren't shown here yet because at the very last minute, the state moved a lot of the state funding to federal stimulus. So we actually had to, SCO actually had to reopen our books and we had to move the funds from one side to the other side. And those aren't even showing right now. They won't show until we move forward into the 21-22. Contributions. We only had contributions to routine restricted maintenance and special education. Although the contribution to special education is higher than last year, it is less than we budgeted and we were prepared for it. And actually the routine restricted maintenance is much lower because as the expenses went down on the unrestricted side, our contribution to routine restricted maintenance becomes less. So here's a look at the combined general fund. So it shows you overall the revenues are 6.1% higher, expenditures are 6% lower. The change in the transfers in and out, the transfer to Fund 17 only ended up being $10,000 to hit our 13.3% at the end of the year because the expenditures were so low. And then the routine restricted maintenance, which I already mentioned, was $100,000 lower. I didn't put that graphic in my PowerPoint, but I did put it in the summary that I put in the packet that you received. I just did want to mention that the overall expenditures were still at about 80%. That's going to staffing of all of our costs of expenditures. And even though we got a lot of COVID funding in dollars, still 80% of our funding comes from property taxes and RDA. So this is showing you our reserves. At second interim, we were expecting to have 3.8 in Fund 17, so we're finishing with 3.5 because it lowered because of expenditures. We have unassigned amount of 3.7 in our general fund, which leaves us with a reserve balance of 27.35. Which is a little bit higher than last year. Last year we finished at 24.3. So moving forward with that, this is just reminding of the compensation increase we had for 21-22. We had a 7.5% increase for this year. We actually did 2 additional days for this year only. But there was contingency language in the TA that said we would contribute a 1% ongoing increase if we hit a percentage of 25% or higher in the unaudited actuals. And we have hit it. next steps is now I'm working with the auditors to get all of my reports to them, and they will be working with the audit, which will be coming in December. And I'll start working on the 21-22 budget and getting it ready for the first interim. And then we'll be balancing our COVID dollars, seeing what's coming, when it will be coming, and be coming back to you in October with a recap on COVID funding and our expenditure plan for ESSER 3.
You've been busy.
I have been. Is there any questions?
Oh, thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
It's a lot of extra dollars, but a lot more work. But what a nice problem to have. Okay, so this is an action item. Do you have any questions, comments, or motions to approve?
I'll move to improve 11.3.c unaudited actuals.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moving on. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Great job.
11.3D, GAN appropriations.
So this is a resolution that comes out of the unaudited. Basically what the GAN limit is it was something that was put in place to keep all of the levels of spending in schools relevant to what it was in 78, 79. Taking into consideration changes in population and inflation. And depending on where our GAN limit, if we hit the limit or not, then we have to go to the state and tell them why we didn't hit it. And we hit it perfect, and there's zero, there's no letter, we don't have to go to the state. And I ask that you would adopt this resolution.
Do we have a motion to approve the GAN appropriations limit resolution number 2204?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
This is a resolution. Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, next we have 11.3E, resolution number 2205, authorizing the issuance and sale of the 2021 general obligation refunding bonds.
So we have an opportunity to refund some bonds. We believe that given where rates are headed within the bond market, that we'll be able to save the taxpayers of Healdsburg about $1.3 million or so over the lifetime of the bonds by doing so. So this is a resolution authorizing that refinancing.
Nice. Do you have a motion to approve? Resolution?
I'll motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, this is another resolution.
Aye.
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 Aye, and thank you for doing that. That's awesome. Okay, we are going to adjourn the regular meeting of Board of Trustees, and we're going to convene as a regular meeting of the Healdsburg School Facilities Financing Authority.
There we go.
Okay, and I'm going to convene our regular meeting of the Healdsburg School Facilities Financing Authority. Okay, roll call.
So we have present Trustee McAllister, Trustee Lopez, Trustee Popmasil, and Trustee Roma Flores. Not present is Trustee Del Rey.
Do we have any public comments?
Any public comments? New business. So this is just an extension of the last item, basically, that we did in the prior meeting, I should say. The set of bonds that we are going to be refinancing requires us to have a school facilities financing authority, which is our board of trustees. So we are now in a separate meeting doing so. And this authorizes us to continue with certain parts of the refinancing of those said bonds. Specifically, authorizes us to open an escrow account and issue and pay off the bonds that currently exist.
Okay.
Is there an estimated savings to this?
This is part of that 1.3 million. This is in tandem with the last item.
Right. No,
basically. Yeah. So we hope for 1.3 million. We have to still get rated by Standard & Poor's, and then we will take it to market and see where the bond market is, do the sale, and then pay off the existing. Yeah. So.
Want to make it public.
Yes, great. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve resolution number 2206, authorizing the execution and delivery by the authority of one or more escrow agreements in connection with the issuance of Healdsburg Unified School District obligation refunding bonds, and authorizing the execution of necessary documents and certificates and related actions in connection therewith?
So moved.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, this is a resolution, so roll call vote.
Aye.
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 And may I ask, somehow, I don't know how we do this, once this happens, that we make this public?
We will. We'll issue a press
Okay.
release and make sure it's out
That's
there.
great.
Yeah.
All right,
Once
thank
we have final tally of where it ends up.
People should know we're saving money.
Are there any other matters not appearing on the agenda?
No.
Okay, so we will adjourn that meeting, and we will convene the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Do a roll call.
Okay, so Board of Trustee reports, comments, requests for information.
I just wanted to propose that we talk about district communication in the near future, both communications to parents and family about school events, school procedures, so on, and talking about consistency in those communications, and also that we talk with a little bit more of an eye towards vision about how we want to be communicating to the public, including students and families, about what's happening in the district, what's happening in the schools, and really kind of look at it from our current vantage point about where and how people are communicating and what we want to kind of present about what the district is doing, broadly. And I'd really love to have both a board discussion and kind of a plan for how we're going to do that going forward. Yeah, that's all.
Anybody else?
Can I say one more thing too? Not about communication. I just want to add, I know I said earlier that, we're now a month into school, and I just am so pleased and happy and really, really super grateful for all the hard work that's gone into making the last month something really, really special for our students. A real significant return to normalcy, and our family is just super, super grateful. So thanks.
I'll second that.
Okay. Do we need to recess to close session? Okay. All right. So our next regular board meeting is Wednesday, October 20th, here in Healdsburg City Hall. Deadlines to submit agenda items is Tuesday, October 11th. And Wednesday, October 12th for all.
13th. Typo. So
Oh, 13th, Wednesday the 13th.
For backup materials.
For backup materials. Okay, so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here.